I'm ready.
And we are live. Hello, hello, my wonderful friends around the world. This is Mari Smith coming to you live from sunny San Diego. And look who I have with me, the one and only Baer in the house. Check it out.
Coming to you live from gloomy Indiana. Why don't I live in San Diego? Can I just live in your guest room? Like, I'm sure, like we'd be hanging out, we'd be drinking wine all the time, doing cool projects. I don't take up that much room, or it'd be awesome.
Oh, wearing funny socks.
Wearing funny socks, crazy suits. I'm telling you, we should do a reality show. We should just okay, we're going to get like a 1-bedroom apartment, right? With bunk beds. Okay. And we'll just do crazy. We'll be making media. We'll just live stream the whole thing. It'll be like Kardashians. It'll be like Keeping Up with Mari and Jay. It's going to be a
Oh, yeah, classy though. It'll be classy.
Well, classy version. Of course, it goes without saying. I mean,
that's
you're
great.
Scottish. You have standards and morals.
Yeah. And Canadian and Californian. So yeah, Scandifornian, as we like to say. So, Jay, this is really exciting. So we're going to have more folks joining us. And folks, if you're tuning in either on desktop or mobile, depending on how your app is configured, you probably should see some comments below. We have the Facebook comments below. Let me just hit refresh and make sure this is streaming. It usually is. Beautiful. I see us. Yay. Okay. Oh, no, that's weird. I hear myself, but I don't need to. Close the app. Okay, I closed it on myself. Yeah, there's comments below, and there is a lovely button there. And I just hit refresh. It's probably going to come back on me. Oh, I know why. I just turned the mute. There you go. I've got it. No, it's... Oh, my gosh. Well, I hear it in my ears, but I'm just... Oh, okay, it's acting up on me. Don't be doing that. It's probably me. User error. Whoopsie. We're good. I will be checking your questions, and feel free to pop them below. If you're tweeting, hey, do you have a hashtag? I'm sure, Jay, yeah?
Hug your haters.
Hashtag hug your haters, of course.
What I need is an emoji. I need like a hug emoji. Somebody needs to work on that. Get on that, dude.
So totally, right? So because obviously Facebook have got these new animated emojis.
I know.
Right? There's
I don't think there is like a hug one though. It's like it's more like hearts and kisses. I gotta talk to somebody.
Okay, so we have got a lot to cover here today. Would you just, for anybody here, the one or two folks that have never heard of you, would you give us just a wee bit of your background and then lead into that? I want to know what inspired you to basically come about to write this book, Hug Your Haters. And I know obviously you've done a lot of research with Edison and so on. Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time. It's always great to spend time with you. This is the warm up to our future reality show. So it's a very interesting time for me. My background is actually in politics. I used to run political campaigns, including some presidential elections and things like that back in the day when I was just a young man. And so it's a very exciting, crazy time. It gives me lots of memories, some good, some not so good of my past. But I got bored of politics and got into traditional marketing for a while. But then in 1993, so quite a while ago, I got involved in online marketing and have been involved ever since. I am the president of a company called Convince and Convert, which does social strategy, content strategy, etc., customer experience strategy for some of the biggest brands in the world. We work with the United Nations, Allstate, Adidas, a bunch of other companies. And I've written lots of books about marketing and social and content marketing, etc. But one of the things I realized, Mari, is that in our work, we kept seeing, from a consulting standpoint, this collision between marketing and customer service, especially in social, especially in online. I get questions about this every day. Well, if somebody is complaining on Twitter and we've got to get back to them, who should do that? The customer service department or the marketing department, et cetera, et cetera. And so I came to the conclusion very quickly that even though it's 2016 and you would think that we would kind of have customer service figured out by now, we most definitely do not have customer service figured out. In fact, it's getting much harder, not easier, to do customer service. So I thought, I've written about social, I've written about content. What I haven't written about really is customer service and customer experience. And so that became the book, Hug Your Haters, which, as you mentioned, thank you, is based on a huge research project I undertook to really look at the science of complaint, who complains and why and where and how. And what I found is that about a third of all customer complaints are never answered. But almost all of those customer complaints that aren't answered are in social media, review sites like Yelp, TripAdvisor, Angie's List, etc., or on discussion boards and forums. And so companies are ignoring customers, not accidentally, on purpose, in those venues while they go about answering every phone call and replying to most of the emails. And so we've got to flip that script. Today, customer service is a spectator sport, and that requires businesses to totally change the way they think about customer service and to totally change their customer service processes, because now customers want to interact with you not just on phone and email, but everywhere. Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, WeChat, social media, Snapchat, Instagram, etc. It's gotten very, very complicated.
Yeah, so they got all of these different channels where people can come at you. I know we're going to get into some of that, and I know exactly what you mean, because like you, I've been, you've definitely obviously been diving much deeper into this, and with the research and Forrester and Edison and so on, it's just fascinating. In fact, last year when you did the closing keynote at the Social Media Marketing World, our good friend Mike Stelzner there in San Diego, it just, my eyeballs popped out my head with some of those things that you were saying about, where the complaints are. It's one of your stats, that 3/4, 71%, right, of all social media complaints are on Facebook. So
right.
That's a big one to me.
Oh, it's, yeah. And that, I mean, of all the research that we conducted, there are a lot of things that were really surprising, so much so that I wrote a book about it. Right. But probably the one piece of data that I really never saw coming at all, I was like, wait, is this right? Like, we got to double check this. And it's very much right. If I say, well, if you've got a complaint and you want to wage that complaint in social, where would you do that? Almost everybody who is in social media would say Twitter, right? Twitter yes. is the customer service part of social media. In fact, many businesses, especially large ones, have dedicated Twitter handles just for customer care. It's at company name helps, at company name cares. We're all familiar with that. But mathematically, if you look at the totality of complaints in social, you're exactly right. My research found that 71% of all complaints in social media are on Facebook. Twitter is 17%. Now, part of that is because it's harder to find customer complaints in Facebook because it's not open. The API is not open in the same way that Twitter's is. And so it makes it a little more difficult to use software to find those complaints. But what we see in Facebook all the time, Mari, is people complaining about brands, complaining about situations. Now that I'm so attuned to it with this book, I see it every day. They complain about brands and situations with no expectation that business will see it or respond. What those people want, they're not necessarily looking for an answer. They want an audience. They want that sort of groundswell, that group like, oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Like they want everybody to kind of like, kind of suffer together. They don't necessarily even expect a business to respond. So if a business does respond, they're like, wow, I can't believe you actually listened.
Okay, so back up a second, because this is really, I love studying human behavior and psychology and what makes people tick. And fundamentally, we're all far more alike than we are different around the world. And so what you're saying is that people are turning to, your everyday consumers are turning to social channels to voice their frustration, fully not expecting, was there a number there you cited? How many?
47%. Of people who complain in social media expect a response, less than half.
Okay, so 47. I know actually I'm going to, we can share some of these. Oh, I know what, I have a couple graphics that I can share my screen in a moment that you were kind to send over. Okay, so less than half. So they go there, but so what they're actually, their intent is that they're going to get people in their community.
It's like group sympathy.
Empathizing. Yeah. Suffering, they're there, patting them about, oh, you poor thing, you look what you had to go through.
Yeah,
that's fascinating, because that almost ties into the very reason we use social media, is because we want to feel like we belong, we matter, we're part of something, we're a community. And so then plugging into that, even from the negative standpoint, if people are rallying around and going, yay, it's almost like the David and Goliath, isn't it? You're upset at a big brand,
exactly
but all
right.
little Davids are going, oh, so wow, that's neat. So let's since we're on this right now anyway, Jay, if you will, what would you say, like from a good like best practices standpoint with corporations? Would you say the goal is to increase that, decrease that percentage so that people can know when I go to quote complain or interact with a brand, they are going to respond. I want them to respond.
Well, I mean, the advice in the book is to answer every complaint in every channel every time.
Wow.
To look harder, to find every time your brand is mentioned, even if it's not a place that you are currently participating. Same thing is true with discussion boards and forums. It's the same effect as Facebook. Lots of people complain in discussion boards without anticipating that a brand will see it or respond, because most companies don't participate in discussion boards and forums, which is a huge mistake, because it's where most of your passionate fans really hang out. If you're going to spend time in a discussion board about a particular category, you really care about that category. But yet we typically ignore those customers in those places. So I think from a business standpoint, Facebook in particular is a little tricky, because you have such an enormous audience and such overwhelming usage of Facebook, both to praise brands and to complain about brands. But yet, unlike Twitter and some other places, you can't just say, show me every mention in Facebook, because of the way the API is set up. It's not possible. So what I think you should do is make it very, very clear on your own Facebook properties that you do very much want to do customer service on those properties, right? Whether that's having an app that says customer service, or being very clear about your messaging in your on your wall, your timeline. What we're seeing now, just right now, Mari, is a huge move amongst many brands to use Facebook Messenger for business. And Facebook is very much pushing that themselves, which I think is brilliant on their part, saying, look, why should we use the phone? Why should we use email? Why don't we just use Messenger as the customer service vehicle? And that people who say, hey, I do want an answer, will say, nah, I'm not going to use Twitter. I'm going to use Facebook Messenger instead. Very important trend.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100% agree. And I'm excited to dive in a little bit further with that topic today, because obviously Facebook is very close to my heart. It's my passion. It's what I do pretty much all day, every day, helping businesses to get more results on Facebook with their marketing, paid, organic, but Messenger and communicating, messaging the customer is a really huge component of that. So we'll come back to that. I'm going to share my screen right quick for a moment, because here we go. I want folks to see one of your beautiful graphics, which I know is in the book, and just to give people a visual of exactly what Jay was just talking about there. And this is United States social media complaints by social platforms, 71%. Facebook. Now, as you said, the common misconception is that people turn to Twitter first and foremost. And I remember actually I tweeted this out when you did this in your keynote at Social Media Marketing World, Jay. And I remember somebody tweeted back to me, went, yeah, that's because it's hard to complain in 140 characters. I thought, well, there's merit to that.
There is a little bit. There is a little bit.
But of course, so you've got more room to complain, but typically, you've got a lot more users and more active users on Facebook. This is interesting. Even Google Plus, people using Google Plus, and then Instagram. I'll bet you that number is going to go up, the 5% on Instagram.
Oh, yeah, I would certainly think so. Right now, most companies aren't really thinking about Instagram as a service channel, but there's no reason why they couldn't. Although I would say within the larger Facebook ecosystem, certainly Messenger, as we discussed, but also WhatsApp. I mean, WhatsApp has got huge implications for customer service and beyond.
I agree. Oh my gosh, there's just so much we can talk about, so many directions we can go. I do have questions prepared, folks, so we are organized, and this is an organic discussion. If you feel like chipping in, I do have your questions here. If you see me glancing at my mobile, I actually have got your questions right here on my mobile. But WhatsApp, had they just announced 1 billion users, so it's an incredible milestone. WhatsApp has actually doubled in users since Facebook bought them, right, for an inordinate amount of money, so 21 billion, right?
But not really. When you start thinking about how important it's going to be, you're like, that could have been a bargain.
It was a bargain.
Which you never would have thought at the time. You're like, this is crazy. Why would you spend that kind of money? But they're crazy like a fox. Zuckerberg and co.
It's just like a Seward's Folly, right? When you bought Alaska for a
right, exactly. Well, and what's funny about it too, the thing about WhatsApp that blows me away. So you just said it's 1 billion users, okay? Has there ever been? I'm going to say no. There has never been in the history of the world something that popular that has gotten so little press.
Yeah.
You think about how much press Twitter gets, how much press Instagram gets, how much press Pinterest gets, how much press Blab gets, how much press Peach gets, and then you have WhatsApp, which is as big or bigger than all of them combined, and nobody ever talks about it, at least not anywhere close to that scope and scale. They are amazing at stickiness and user growth. They are terrible at PR.
Yeah. Good point. And so when a couple things just to amplify what you're saying or to anchor or underscore, I'm looking at my 1 billion of WhatsApp. So that was February 1st. Mark Zuckerberg and team are on record to say that they actually turned to crank up their monetization plans for an app or platform or product once it hits 1 billion. So I thought it was fascinating when Mark posted this WhatsApp announcement, and he said, that people are able to call loved ones from far away. Well, who doesn't have a loved one far away? No subscription fee, made WhatsApp completely free. So he's like underscoring, these are all the great things about WhatsApp. Yeah. Next, we're going to work to connect more people around the world and make it easier to communicate with businesses. Yep. Bingo. You and I know, Jay, to the untrained eye, they might not pick that up, but that is not the next big wave, because we're going to continue using Facebook Messenger for communication and customer support. And now, much to the total headache, I'm sure, of businesses out there, they have to now become experts in integrating WhatsApp as well. So
it's and that's why, look, people say, Jay, you do all this kind of advanced, content marketing stuff. Why would you write a book about customer service? Customer service is so, last year. And I'm like, no, it's the exact opposite. Like, it's so crazy right now. I mean, think about how many businesses, either officially or colloquially, call their customer service department the call center.
Yes.
Right. If you call it the call center, you've got a rude awakening on the way, because it's not going to be the call center, because nobody's going to call anymore, other than perhaps through WhatsApp, which is a little different. So it requires different processes. It requires different software. It requires different metrics. It requires way different training. It is going to be disruptive. Customer service is the new marketing, and customer service is being disruptive the same way that marketing has been disrupted in the last 5 years.
I love it. I love it. You're so you've got your finger in the pulse here, Jay. You're a futurist.
I'm not, though. I'm not. I don't want to be. I'm a presentist. Is how I think of it. Is how I think of it. I don't come up with new ideas. That's not the business that I'm in. I'm not the guy who future casts like Brian Solis or people like that and say, here's what's going to happen. My job is to translate disruptive concepts for larger audiences, to say, here's what's happening, and let me tell you what's happening in a way that you can understand and in a way that you can do something about it. I feel like my job and what I'm actually good at is as a trend to operations translator, both in books and in speeches. That's what I really try to do. I'm not out here trying to invent the future. I'm trying to tell you, what the present means.
Okay, very good. That makes sense. Just a quick shout out, Pecky. Pecky Cox says she loves WhatsApp. Terry, she's getting double feedback and echo in the audio. I don't know if anyone else is having that challenge. If you could let me know, please. Christopher, I know you're tuning in, and Renee. Kristen Jones, Cardos, hello, dear. She says it's sad that we get so excited just to get a response. And that was in context of obviously.
Yeah. People are all, oh my God, I can't believe you answered. Well, and let me say that a different way. That's a great comment. So if I say, Mari, who's really good at customer service? You could name somebody, right? You could probably name 2 or 3 companies. Everybody watching be like, oh, these guys and these guys. But that's amazing. Like, I mean, we shouldn't be able to name anybody. Everybody should be good enough at customer service that if I say who's good, you don't have an answer because there's too many companies that are good at it. The fact that we can name them makes them by definition rare, and that is really sad.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's true. And I know our good friend Eric Qualman, author of Socialnomics, and he years ago, and he used to make those awesome videos, and he would say that, why are we, well, truth be told, he was talking about measuring social, but the part that always stood out in my brain is that social touches every facet, every aspect of business. Yeah. And certainly,
Yes, it's that social layer more so than a component.
Yeah, yeah. Let's dive into some of my questions here. I'd like to know what you mean, the difference between just accepting complaints and trying to resolve them, which
Yep.
most people, that's what oh my gosh, somebody's complaining, got to resolve them,
Yep.
versus embracing complaints and complainers. So actually, I'll let you answer that, and I'm going to illustrate with a little example of my own.
So a couple different pieces to that, and we studied this in the research for the book. So we asked customers, how did you feel about a business before you complained? Did you get a response? Did you not get a response? How did you feel afterwards? And based on that measurement, we discovered that just answering just one customer complaint in social media and beyond can increase customer advocacy by up to 25%. Just one question. Now, we also asked them, well, what happened? Did you actually get your problem resolved, or did you just get an answer, right? There's a difference between being heard and actually solving the problem. Well, what we found is really fascinating. So you have a slight additional bump in customer love if you actually answer the problem, solve the problem, okay, resolve it, but not that much. So almost all of the credit your brand gets is just responding, not resolving. So obviously it's better to resolve if you can, but almost all of the credit you get is just showing up to the party, just saying, we're terribly sorry we disappointed you. If you have a problem, I don't need to fix it. I just need to acknowledge it.
Right, right. Yeah, that's huge. And that goes back.
It's very interesting, I think.
Well, I agree. And that ties to, like, as I say, I just love this component of it, because the human behavior, it's basically how we show up in any circumstance, whether positive or negative, is that wanting to be seen. Fundamentally, there's a little inner child in all of us that wants to be seen. And so when someone gets a tweet back or a Facebook comment, even a like, if a business goes like that, oh my gosh, they've seen my comment, they saw it, they've heard me, they're doing something about it. Great. What I was going to say about that, accepting and resolving complaints versus embracing them, and letting them know that you're listening and that you've heard them. A few years back, I was doing a keynote for the Association of Golf Merchandisers.
Fun.
And it was a good group. And that was back east. Excuse me. Back your way. And I remember, this is, like I say, several years ago, before like everybody just had a Facebook page, and there were so many people in the room, whether they were golf clubs, or like membership clubs, and obviously golf courses and things like that, that were saying, gosh, Mari, we just don't even know that we even want a Facebook page. What do we do about negative comments? And that was like the biggest fear in the room. And I saw this with many audiences, or heard this, where they were so nervous to even have a presence, lest there be positive, negative complaints. And I said, oh my gosh, like you, Jay, this is an opportunity for you to demonstrate stellar customer service out in the open. You can turn that person around. You can even you never know who's watching, who might go, oh my gosh, you see how that company handled that? Wow, I feel warm and fuzzy about that brand now. And so that just always surprised me about how people would hold back and have concerns. And actually one person was like, oh, Mari, you don't know our club. Or I thought, okay, there's even a deeper fundamental issue here, is that, like you were saying, Jay, dialing it back to what kind of training does the company need to have? What kind of culture do they have? I mean, obviously Zappos is used extensively as one of the best customer service experiences. However, if you back it up, as you well know, Tony Hsieh, wonderful CEO, has the 10 core company values that inform the culture, that inform the customer service. It all trickles down. So whilst I've gone on and on about that topic, would you be willing to just speak to that part about, like, where does it start with this training of excellent customer service?
I mean, I did a webinar the other day, and at the conclusion of the webinar, we were doing Q&A, and somebody said, hey, how can I get fewer customer complaints? And I thought, well, number one, why would you want fewer?
Yeah.
You want more, and I'll tell you about that in a second.
Okay.
But what I actually said was, well, you could be a better company. So you could just solve whatever it is that makes people mad. So you could do that. So there's an idea, right? And so that, your golf example is so great. Like, we don't want to be on Facebook because somebody might say something bad about us.
Right.
So you don't have a social media problem. You have an operations problem that just shows up in social media. Social media doesn't create negativity. It just puts a magnifying glass to it, right? It's the early warning detection system for whatever is less than perfect in your business. Now, I will say, however, and I don't think I sent you this number, but in the research, we found that people who are heavy users of Facebook and people who are heavy users of Twitter complain more often than people who aren't. And it's like lockstep. I mean, it's exactly a correlation that heavy social media usage equals heavy complaint, which I find very, very fascinating. But we can talk about that maybe in a little bit. But I suspected that was true, but it is true. Look, one of my favorite stories in the book is from Le Pain Quotidien, and they're a chain of bakeries and cafes. They're based in Belgium, several locations in the US, they have 220 locations. And when their new director of customer experience, Erin Pepper, started there about 2 years ago, she said, "My goal as the director of customer experience is to triple the number of complaints." To triple the number of complaints they get. She doesn't want fewer complaints. And typically you think, well, customer experience means get fewer complaints. She sees it the other way. She wants to get as many complaints as possible. Why? Because that teaches you something. Mari, the most overrated thing in the world, the most overrated thing in business, the most overrated thing in life is praise. Praise teaches you nothing. When somebody says, "Mari, you're so great at this, Mari, you're so great at that, and you are great at many, many, many things," it feels really good, but it teaches you nothing. You already know what you're good at. Negative feedback, criticism is the petri dish for improvement. Ooh. You need that kind of criticism. That's why haters and the people who complain are your most important customers. They're your most important fans. They're your most important associates, because they're willing to use their time to tell you what you can do better. And that's why every single time somebody complains, instead of ignoring it, you need to embrace it. You need to hug those haters, because they are free market research.
Okay, so this is brilliant. I love that phrase, the petri dish of improvement, you said, right? That's what complaints are. Now, would you say then, because I want to differentiate here, because when you said that about praise, I agree with you. It's wonderful to have the ego stroked, but we want to grow and improve and become better versions of ourselves from a personal development standpoint. But Richard Branson's voice was in my head. I remember him in a talk years ago, and he said that you want to lavish praise on your employees, on your staff. That's an important part of praise. Yes. But what you're saying is the negative complaints are going to happen anyway. And I know, like you, I would rather hear people give me constructive criticism. People in my community, certainly if someone has a legitimate complaint or even an illegitimate complaint, then I do want to know about it. I do want to know how I can improve.
Well, here's the math on that, Mari, which is amazing to me. 95%, 95% of unhappy customers never complain in a way that your business will ever find. They may complain privately to their friends. 95% never do. They just disappear. They never come back. You're like, whatever happened to that guy? I don't know. He never came back. So the 5% that do complain are essentially the unelected representatives of a much larger group. And that's why when people, and this happens to me all the time now that I talk about these themes, especially for small business, they say, well, that customer had an unusual experience. That's not usually how it's like. That guy, that's a bad customer, or he was lying or whatever. And I'm like, no, there's no way. Because every time somebody complains, you can bet in almost every case, a bunch of other people have had the same reaction, but they didn't take the time to tell you about it. Right. So this idea that this one customer, this one guy had this crazy experience that nobody else has ever had is almost never the case.
Mm. Okay, this is brilliant. I mean, this is fascinating. There's a part of me that wants to be a participant in this and just watch and take lots of notes.
I'm really happy with the book. I think it's the best thing I've ever done in my whole career. I think it's the most useful thing I've ever done. It's written very intentionally so that it doesn't matter what kind of business you are. There's a lot of takeaways. It's big business, small business, B2B, B2C. There's case studies and data and recommendations for everybody. So I'm really, really happy with how it came out.
Can you hold it up? Do you have one nearby?
I do. It looks like that. Oh, and I showed you this the other day, but each book has a poster in it. It folds out. It's called The Hatrix. See, there's the book. The Hatrix, which has all the really important data from the book in the actual poster. And you can just rip this out. It's bound in the book. Rip it out and put it on your wall and refer back to it. And it talks about all the important things you need to know.
I like it. I like it. It's so funny because we were joking at the beginning of our session here that, about being different styles and cultures and whatnot. And I know for me, sometimes I have difficulty saying the word hater because, it's my British upbringing. But just to clarify, a hater is a common term for people who complain, who leave negative reviews, who either have a justified complaint against your business or not. And as you were saying, really those 5% who are the unelected voices of what is a challenge in the business. Yep. So it's funny because even when I was putting together like the invitation for this conversation here today, I'm like, okay, love your complainers. Turn the people that write negative comments around into really good people and who want to buy from you.
Yes. No, I know. And it is, some people are like, well, not everybody's a hater. And again, I mean, some of it is just a good book title, right? But in the parlance of the book, anybody who has a complaint is a hater. Now, in day-to-day conversation, typically we would reserve that term for somebody who's a little bit more outlandish than just a regular complaint. But just in terms of organizing the thinking in the book, we say that anybody who complains is officially a hater.
Got it. Hey, I just had a wild idea. How about a British version called Cuddle Your Complainers?
See, there you go. We've got there's a lot of nuzzle your negatives. So there's a lot of opportunities there that we can come up with. Yeah.
That's funny. Hey, I want to circle back to something you just said. It was so critical. This the example you said, your favorite example in the book was this bakery or a cafe in Belgium.
Yeah, well, they're based in Belgium. They have locations everywhere in the U.S. and all over the world.
Okay, and one of the goals of this, the person that was brought on for the social customer care, she mentioned about wanting to triple the number of complaints.
That's right.
So that ties in. I just really want to underscore that point to people that didn't quite catch it, maybe, is that when you said there's really 95% of people that have an issue or a complaint or a challenge with the company, they're doing it in a way like privately, text, email, private message, whatever, that the company will never find out. So we're listening to these 5%. So totally counterintuitively, we want to encourage companies to make it safe, if you will, even to connect and communicate with that company. And easy,
which is where WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger and all these new things come into play, because it's easy. So you see, fundamentally, the problem is businesses have forever insisted on doing customer service in the venues and the channels that the business prefers. We have to now do customer service in the venues and channels that the customers prefer.
Right.
That's the only way you're going to get more feedback. Because look, what most people do is they have a job in customer experience. Their job is to get fewer complaints. They get hired. Say, we're getting too many complaints. I want to hire you to get fewer complaints. And you know how you do that? Stop listening for them.
Oh, yeah. That's how you get fewer.
I've met my goals. We're just not going to, we're just not gonna encourage people to complain as much. Complaints drop. Ta-da! Happens all the time.
Wow. Yeah.
It's like
that's
surveys, right? I mean, it's like, oh well, we sent them a link into a survey. It's like, that's not a culture of hospitality. That's the minute you sent out a link to a survey. I mean, come on. That's not pushing people to give you feedback. I mean, that is such a passive way of trying to learn from your customers that it's almost not even worth doing.
Yeah, because where's the incentive? What's in it for them?
None. Well, and typically what drives me crazy about surveys, and I talk about it in the book, is that usually what happens is that even if you go through the survey, many of them are too long, but you go through the survey and you provide feedback, you never hear back from the company. Almost never. It goes into this black hole. You're like, okay, I submitted this form. And I trust that something is going to happen, but they never call you back and never say, oh, Mari, thanks for the survey. We understand you have an issue here. Let's work on it. Very few companies do that. They're like, well, we did the survey, and that's it. It's terrible.
Yeah. Like you say, check a box somewhere. Yeah. let's talk about how you say the difference. You talk in the book, obviously the haters. We've clarified what that term means, and people are clear. So there's a hater where the issue can be resolved, and then what you're calling determined detractors, where it's very highly unlikely you would get them to turn around, but maybe at least get them to tone it down.
Yeah, and people would call those maybe trolls sometimes.
Yeah.
In the internet, and those are, look, obviously, and the research bears this out, you want to try to make every customer happy. You want to listen to every customer because there is a material and important impact on customer advocacy as a result. But that's not always going to happen. Like, you can't make everybody happy. It's not possible. So especially online, social media, review sites, etc., where you have all these spectators, the goal then becomes proving to all these other people who are watching what your values are, what you stand for, what kind of company you are, that you listen, that you care. As Dave Kirpin told me when I interviewed him for the book, he said, understand that no response is a response. No response is a response that says, I don't care about you at all.
So as everything speaks, verbal and nonverbal. I completely agree with you.
So say, well, and if you go to places like Yelp and TripAdvisor, all the review sites is where it's most egregious. You go to any sort of review site, Angie's List, all the vertical ones, apartmentratings.com or whatever, Real Self, which is the ratings site for plastic surgeons that I talk about in the book. All these different places. There's all this negative feedback and nobody answers it. It just sits there. Sits there. It looks bad. And if you don't answer it, it becomes true, right? It becomes true. And that is really, really dangerous and something that's so easy to fix. What I recommend people do is go find every review, every mention of your brand ever, and answer it. It doesn't matter if it was 3 years ago. Say, hey, I know it's been a really long time. We're just now kind of changing our policy, how we respond to these kind of reviews. I want to thank you for your feedback, even though it was in 2013. It's been a long time, but if you see this, if there's anything we can do for you, please do let me know. We'd love to try and make it right. Just go do that.
That's brilliant. That's really, again, it's counterintuitive.
It'll take you 2 days, and then now you have actually gone on record in front of the public to say, oh, these guys actually care.
Yeah. Hey, I want to give you another quick example that you've just reminded me of. So I just got back from Salt Lake City. I was up there for a business trip for a few days, and my colleagues and I went for dinner on one of the nights to this really nice Italian restaurant called Sea Salt. And it was kind of light and airy, soft music. So you could hear, it wasn't those really loud, noisy restaurants, which I don't care for. Extremely good food, exceptional food, great service. And then the evening's over, and I go and I checked in and wrote a little review. And I said, all those things I just told you. I was really, really impressed. And I hit update on my Facebook, and then I'm like, oh, I think I'll go and I'll look. And I looked at some of the other reviews, and they had a lot of, I think it was like average of 4.1. But I always like to read, like I was like, well, I wonder what people have said that's not so positive. I couldn't believe how many people were like, oh my God, the service was so slow here. But what I had actually gone to their website and looked, and they're part of the slow food movement.
It's expectation management. Yeah.
Right? And that's one of the things I loved about it. So, oh my gosh, it was just so, but it wasn't, I literally put in my update and the review, I'm like, it was slow enough, but not too slow. And then when I saw that they're part, and then all these people complain, oh my God, it was so slow.
Intentionally slow, people. But you know what? That's the kind of thing, though, that we talked about negative feedback being the petri dish for improvements. That's the kind of thing that what we would do on the consulting side of our business, or anybody who's a good director of customer experience would do, would be to audit those and say, okay, we have a clear misunderstanding here. People think we're too slow. We're slow on purpose. So what we have to do is rework that so that is messaged in multiple ways. When you call to make a reservation, it says, I want to remind you, they're part of the slow food movement. We're not trying to get you in and out fast. This is a luxurious dining experience. We want to make sure that on the menus, we call that out. We want to make sure that each server is trained to call that out when you order, right? And so you diagnose the customer touch points where that expectation gap is going to hurt your reputation, and you solve it then, right? So that you just knock that down. But people, A, don't even read their reviews in many cases.
Right.
B, they read them and don't know what to do about them. And so C, then you just have this like misunderstanding that they're lucky they're such a good restaurant. It doesn't sound like it's really hurt them at all, but it can. In other circumstances, it really can.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's about managing those expectations. What was interesting, Jay, is that the very person, I think he was either the manager or even the owner, I saw that within 24 hours, he had commented saying, "No, it's great. It was great to have you in the restaurant." But I thought, well, where's your replies to the people that were leaving negative reviews? Because they didn't seem to have any replies.
Right.
So I'll send him the link to this recording.
Yeah. Get him a book.
Yeah, I'll send him a book. More
book. Salt Lake City, sea salt. There you go. Hook it up. So I've got a great story too. I have a great story.
I just want to make sure people know, though, if you guys are watching this, I have a button below. You guys can go and pre-order or just go to hugyourhaters.com, and Jay actually has a boatload of gifts for you, including
socks. Socks. I love hater socks. Recently seen on the feet of one Ted Rubin, who was modeling these on Facebook yesterday. So he's my sock model. Exactly. So I was in Mexico last month with my team at Convince to Convert. We go down there every January for strategic planning, and we went to a really nice dinner, kind of a team dinner, and everybody got to bring their husbands and wives and etc. And amazing place, right on the ocean, on a cliff. It's actually called La Cliff. Extraordinary meal, and we were finishing up. And the waiter comes over and says, we're in a tourist destination, and reviews actually mean a lot to us. And as you know, you're here during the high season. In the summer, it's the low season, rainy, hurricanes, all that. So we actually close the restaurant June, July, August every year. So June, July, August, I don't work at all. I have no job. But our owner has a program where anytime we get somebody to write a review on TripAdvisor and actually use my name, Ramon, as the waiter, every time that happens, I get one paid day.
Wow.
One paid day. So he says, if I can get 45 reviews between now and June, I get paid for 45 days and don't have to work those 45 days. And he said, it makes a huge difference about whether or not I can feed my family, pay my bills, etc. You want to talk about a compelling story about please write us a review. So we had 20 people there, I think 25 people there, and got a bunch of reviews, got this guy a couple of weeks, paid. And people ask me all the time, like, how do we solicit reviews? And that's such a great example, I think. It's like, just, you got to do it in a way that the customer wants to help you. You'll get some reviews anyway, because some people really, like you, some people just really feel like, that is one of their contributions to the world, is I want to write reviews, but that's a small percentage. And so you've got to be able to nudge people to act in a way that is emotionally resonant to them.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love that. Emotionally resonant. And for sure, something like what you're talking about, that could literally impact somebody's livelihood and enjoyment of their family and life and vacation. That's a wonderful concept. I really love it. One of the stats that you mentioned the other day when we did our quick Facebook Live, it also was astounding to me about, I think it was Forrester research, that 80% of businesses believe they deliver superior customer service. And can you share with our viewers here, what exactly is the contrast between what customers think?
This really is the definitive stat of this issue. So Forrester says that, as you mentioned, 80% of companies say that they deliver superior customer service. 8% of their customers agree. 80 versus 8. Now that really does encapsulate the whole problem, and frankly, why I wrote this book and why this book is important. It's hard to write a customer service book because everybody's like, well, why do I need a customer service book? I do great customer service, and in fact, 80% of companies think they do. And then they look a little deeper and like, oh, we're not good at this at all. We thought we were, but actually, we're really not. I just had a conversation with a group I'm going to go speak to pretty soon, like an hour ago. Same situation. They're like, oh, we're really good at customer service. Well, do you do this, and this? Like, no, we don't do any of those things. I'm like, oh, well, perhaps you've got a different interpretation of what good means. And so it's a really amazing set of circumstances. I've been a consultant now for 20 something years. And I've never been in a meeting in my whole life where somebody said, we're bad at customer service. Like, I've never heard anybody say it. Like, nobody believes it, unless you prove it to them, right? You have to show them customer data that customers say you're bad. Nobody ever thinks they're bad, ever.
Yeah, because who would want to admit that? And again, it comes down to those fundamental human behaviors, right? Who wants to put their hand up in class and go, I'm not really that great, I need help, give me some feedback. Um, on that topic or on that note, Jay, because you work with a lot of companies, I know that you do a lot of traveling, speaking, consulting, training. You've got quite a team there at Convince and Convert. What have you found that are some of the hallmarks of companies that are really doing customer service well, and that maybe just mention one or two things that culturally make that CSAT top performers?
Well, I mean, I think you said the magic word. A lot of it is culture, right? It's a culture of sincere hospitality, of believing that, look, we want to keep our customers, and we will do more than we need to keep them. Most companies don't. If you ask companies, do you want to keep your customers? Of course they will say yes, but they don't actually behave that way. In fact, each year, Mari, across the world, we spend $500 billion on marketing and $9 billion a year on customer service. Now, 500
billion
on marketing and $9 billion. Okay. Now that doesn't actually make any sense, right? Because everybody knows, like, you learn this the first day in business, that it actually makes more financial sense to keep the customers you've already acquired, right? To do customer retention. But we don't actually run companies that way. We don't spend our money that way. And so one of the key attributes to being good at customer service, to hugging your haters, to differentiating your business with these kind of things, is to say, we understand that financially it actually makes way more sense for us to keep our customers, that we don't want to have to keep refilling the leaky bucket. And most companies either don't believe that, or can't measure it right, so they don't know, or they think they're actually great at customer service and they're not.
Yeah. And I love to be able to tie this to the bottom line as you're speaking about here. I remember years ago, there's a organization called Mr. Youth. Mr. Youth had conducted this study about social customer care many years ago now, like I say, so things have changed a bit. And I love a lot of these stats and surveys and research that you're citing. Then appeared in Simply Zesty. They're actually a site. You remember them? I'm saying remember, they're still pretty big and out of Ireland and the UK or London. The stat that always stuck out in my mind in this infographic is that of the people that had voiced a complaint or try to get in touch with a company, those that received a response, 80% went on to make a buying decision, right? So that's the big thing there. So people, well, okay, so I'm just going to, have to employ a team to be able to just respond to these whiners and complainers and trolls. Well, show me the money. How does that translate into actually more purchases?
Solving a customer's problem, one of the stats we have in the book, solving a customer's problem has 20 times the impact of an ad.
Wow.
20 times.
Yes. I love it.
So what I think about in sort of a Machiavellian way is, well, how can we create a bunch of problems that we know we can solve? And let's make sure that everybody has a problem. We magically solve them all. Instant customer loyalty. That's what I would do, but that's probably a high risk strategy. But psychologically, it would really work.
Yes.
Because you get that foxhole mentality, right? Like, I had a problem and the company rescued me, and now we're in this together. We are bonded by fire, and I'm going to buy more from them and tell my friends, and I'm going to be a promoter and an advocate for them. That's what happens, right? And everybody has stories like that in their life, of some situation where everything went wrong and Delta saved them, or everything went wrong and Hertz Rent-A-Car saved them, or Apple Store saved them, or whatever, right? Everybody's got those stories in their life where the business did something above and beyond what they expected. And this is all about expectations. We talk all the time about great customer experience, right? Deliver a great customer experience, but nobody talks about what that means. What it means is that you exceed customers' expectations in one or more dimensions. You're either faster than they thought, you're more polite than they thought, you're less expensive than they thought, you are something more than they thought. And when you do that, when they think it's this and you're this, that's what great customer experience means. And so what we advise clients all the time is to say, okay, let's figure out what people expect of you. Let's audit expectations, and then find one or more ways where you can blow those expectations out of the water. And that's what creates what we call a talk trigger. That's what creates that word of mouth effect that then people are like, oh, you can't believe what happened to me. Bop, 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 bop.
Right. I love that. I know I know that I had in my notes here about some triggers. So you've resolved the customer's issue, right? As you say, and they seem happy. And then how do you know that you can trigger messages to get them to become an advocate?
Usually you don't have to trigger messages. Usually if you exceed their expectations in a meaningful way, they will take it upon themselves to advocate on your behalf. They will do it. That's really where word of mouth comes into play, right? So for example, there is an amusement park near my house called Holiday World. And Holiday World is family owned. They're located in Santa Claus, Indiana, which is bizarre. It's a combination amusement park and water park. So they got both kinds of things. Well, they are really good at customer experience. They just understand things. They're great at content marketing. In fact, I profiled them. They're the only company that I both wrote about in Utility and in Hug Your Haters. That's how good they are. And what they do in terms of customer experience, though, is that if you go to Holiday World, you get free soda. So there's all these different places, and you just bring a cup and you get as much soda as you want, and a free sunscreen. They have free sunscreen stations all over the place, so you can get as much sunscreen as you want, which is actually really smart because getting sunburned would be a problem for them and their patrons. So if you look at their TripAdvisor rankings, Holiday World is the number one amusement park in the United States, more than Disney, more than any of those guys. Family owned in the middle of nowhere in Indiana. And if you look in the actual text of their reviews, every single review, like 2,000 out of 2,000, says free soda and free sunscreen, right? Because that's their talk trigger. That's the place that they exceed. Nobody expects to get unlimited free soda. Nobody expects to get unlimited free sunscreen, but they do that, and that's their talk trigger. That's the thing that gets people saying they're amazing, they're amazing, they're amazing. And does it cost them some money? Yeah, but it's the cheapest marketing you can do. You know what soda costs at scale? Like nothing. It's like a penny a cup.
I love that. That is absolutely brilliant. So companies can strategically pre-design how they want these raving advocates to talk about them. And from what you've just described, it's actually fairly straightforward. And you could come up with all kinds of creative things, but what you just described is
find your one thing. Find your one thing that people won't believe you did.
I love that. That is so cool. Gosh, I can't believe where the time is going. I got so many more questions for you. But that's all good because people have to buy the book. You see, we're just giving them a little taste of all this brilliance that Jay has put into his amazing book, Hug Your Haters. And I first heard Jay talk about this in March of last year. So he has been absolutely beating the drum of this topic for some time and poured all his brilliance. Well, not quite all his brilliance, because that's
it seems like all.
It's a portion of his brilliance.
Like all.
Well, then you have to hear him speak and check out Convince and Convert.
Thank you.
Hugyourhaters.com. You're going to be at the Social Media Marketing World, yeah?
I am, yeah. Going to talk a little bit about social customer care for big brands. That's one of the sessions I'm doing. Nice. Also moderating a session on how big brands use influencer marketing now and how they draft influencers, Snapchat, Instagram, etc. Going to put that together, which is great. We just started a new podcast that launches next week at Convince and Convert called Influence Pros, which is a podcast for influencer marketing professionals, people interested in it, and for influencers. So each week they interview an influencer or a brand about those issues. So we're excited about that project.
That sounds awesome. Where can people find your podcast?
Go to convinceandconvert.com/podcasts or iTunes. We have six weekly podcasts now.
6?
Yeah,
that's incredible. I'm just looking to see if we've got any more questions that I can, and I got more for you though. Just let me see here. Shout out to Sandra Wilson in the UK, online events. Who else did I see here? Hi, Jessica Baker. Christopher in the house. Okay. I want to know this, couple more final questions and we'll wrap. So legal issues. So I work with some companies, corporations in the insurance and finance industry, among other industries. And I know that the legal teams can get real tricky and sticky. In fact, as you well know, the insurance and finance industries are one of the most regulated when it comes to social. Back in the day, we used to just, brands were actually hesitant to publicly apologize because that could admit liability. What's your thoughts on that now?
Well, it's funny. I've heard that many times, this idea that you're not allowed to say you're sorry. That you can never apologize to a customer because, as you mentioned, you are then accepting liability. So I said, well, is that true? Maybe that is true. I don't know. I'm not an attorney. So I actually interviewed some attorneys who specialize in that kind of law. And they said, no, it is categorically not true. That if you apologize, that is not accepting liability. That is not in any way, shape, or form an admission of guilt. It is just empathy. And so if you have a legal department in your company who says you're not allowed to apologize, I would tell them that they are wrong. I would tell them to read the book. Now, that doesn't mean that you should just say whatever you want, because you shouldn't. There are certainly things that you should be careful about, especially in certain regulated industries. But the very function of saying we are sorry does not, in fact, introduce any sort of liability to the equation.
Good. Perfect. That will be, I'm sure a number of listeners and viewers will be relieved to hear that. In our final few minutes here, Jay, is there any specific like takeaways, or even how should I put this? Obviously, we would love for people to get the book, go to hugyourhaters.com. March 1st is the official release date.
That's right.
They can get on Amazon and whatnot, but they should go to hugyourhaters.com because you've got all kinds of wonderful gifts and
free
bonuses. Free stuff. And who doesn't like free stuff? Yeah.
So I think the one piece of advice I want to leave people with is one of the kind of process tips in the book. So in the book, we've got specific, here's how you do it if people complain offline, here's how you do it if people complain online, very specific steps. But the one that I'd like to tell people about the most that really resonates with them is Jay Baer's rule of reply only twice. And the way this works is that you never, ever, 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 ever reply to a customer more than twice in any sort of public venue. So if somebody says, Mari, I love you. You answer back, I love you too. And they said, no, we really love you. You answer back, no, I really love you too. And then if they come back a third time, no, I really, really, really love you. You just walk away. Because after twice, you're just wasting time. Now, it's more likely that this happens in a negative scenario. Somebody says, not about you, but about a business, we hate you. And you answer back, we're terribly sorry that we have disappointed you. What can we do to help? They answer back, you can't do anything to help me because you're the worst company ever. We hate you. You answer back a second time. Wow, there really must have been something significant here. We should probably talk about this in a more nuanced and comprehensive way. It would be great if you could DM me, if you could email me, if you could phone me. Here's my numbers. Here's my contact information. Thanks very much. If they come back a third time and say, I don't want to call you. You guys are the worst, and I'm never going to see you again. You then just walk away. You just walk away. Because you have given that person not just one, but two chances. You have been completely rational. You have apologized. You've given them contact options. More importantly, Mara, you have shown all the people who are looking on what kind of company you are, what your values are, and the fact that you listen and care about customers. You at that point are focused on the spectators, not the hater. Never, ever, ever reply more than twice because nothing good will come of it. You get sucked into a negative vortex from which you will never escape. Answer it twice, move on.
Wow. That's such a simple rule of thumb because, you can see, where companies, if they don't understand that, and they probably get more frustrated and then the emotions kick in.
Terrible.
I have the saying that when emotions go up, intelligence goes down. So if you have an emotionally charged customer service person and, going back and forth, I mean, they could get that company into some serious hot water.
Well, and it's not that people are careless or bad about that. One of my personal favorite sections of the book is I interviewed a bunch of psychiatrists and talked about the brain chemistry, like what happens when people leave negative feedback, what happens when people attack you online, and quite literally your brain chemistry changes. And here's the amazing thing, that impact of your mentality, it's almost like a fight or flight response where you're like, you're like on tilt. 26 hours. 26 hours. Your brain's like, blah, 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 blah. And meanwhile, people like me are saying you need to respond quickly and you're all haywire. That's why it's really important to have people who are doing frontline response who kind of have a skill set, right? Who don't take it personally, who are like, okay, I'm dispassionate about this. I can't, if you start getting your hackles up, you can turn this into, take a bad situation and make it worse.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Well, I certainly personally cannot wait to read your book. And my book has been out for a long, long time. It's even got coffee stains on it, but it's
it is the best.
They would
Love
actually
that book.
This would make a great companion to yours because I think it's really same colors. But seriously, I talk. Whoopsie, my mic's going around. I talk about soft skills in there, and this is just the tip of the iceberg that we've covered here, Jay, because there's so much more. Obviously, there's the mechanics of the channels, there's the systems and the tools, there's the training, but there's also the level of maturity and emotional intelligence that the frontline team has to bring to the table.
Well, you see this all the time in your work, Mari. Like, so many businesses feel this pressure to put the youngest possible person in social media, right, because they grew up with this stuff.
Right.
And that's not to say that young people can't do this. Many of them can. But if you're talking about having sort of the wisdom and the insights to know when to take it personally, when not, to be empathetic about somebody who may be having the worst day in their lives. There's a great quote in the book from a company that says it's much easier to teach somebody Twitter than it is to teach them judgment. And I completely agree. I reject this idea that let's make tech savvy the number one criteria for handling customer service in public. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. And in fact, in many big companies, even the least experienced customer service representatives are in social, and the most experienced customer service representatives are on the phone. And I kind of think it should be the opposite, because one's public and one's private.
Wow. Brilliant. Yes. Totally agree. Folks, I'm just going to do a final little screen share here to make sure that you know what we're talking about here. Go to this. I love this. Look how cute you look with your laptop.
Oh, thank you very much.
Hug your haters, a wee heart emoticon, and the wee grumbly face. And turn those haters into customers and advocates. And if you go to hugyourhaters.com, you can see down the left here that Jay does indeed have an enormous number of bonuses.
Socks.
Look at that, $13,000 in bonuses.
Yeah, amazing. You get a whole webinar.
You get a whole webinar just for you.
Webinar with me.
That is amazing. Wow. Okay, good. So March 1st, and obviously, look at those socks.
Socks.
It's just for 7 or more. That's
7
easy.
or more. Yep.
Nice. Okay, great. Well, Jay, you and I have been connected online for a very long time, a gazillion years, and you're one of my favorite people in this space. Let me just come back on screen. There you go. And it's just a joy, it's a joy. I can't wait to read the book thoroughly myself, and I'll certainly be recommending it to my customers and clients and peeps online community. If there's anything I can do for you, my friend, you just say the word.
Oh, you always do so much for you. You are the best. Thank you very, very much.
Oh, my pleasure. And folks, you can click the button down below this video and go and pre-order at least one or lots more of hugyourhaters.com. And get your socks and share it with your boss, right? Don't you think actually people should go and get that book and give it to their boss, right?
100% of bosses think you're good at customer service.
There you go, right? All right, listen, you have a blessed Valentine's weekend.
Valentine's weekend. Are you going to do something fun?
Oh, yes.
You go get them.
Betcha.
Right, I'll be checking out.
Yeah, I'll be checking out. I'm going off the grid on Sunday.
Good for you. Good for you.
All right, you have a wonderful time, folks, and go and love on your customers. Get Hug Your Haters and hugyourhaters.com. Thanks for being here, Jay. You're the best.
Thanks, Mari. See you later.
Bye.